Hey y'all, Toad here. Well, we're taking a look at the 20 some odd executive orders that were put out by President Obama on 16 January, and we're picking this up with number 6, which is publish a letter from the ATF to federally licensed gun dealers providing guidance on how to run background checks for private sellers. Why is my simple question to this. Why do we need to spend federal dollars to teach licensed gun dealers how to provide guidance for background checks on on private sellers? It's painfully obvious. This seems to be another instance where the government is going to force people who want to make their living being firearm dealers to be the teachers of the now new mandate that all private sales have to have background checks. Okay. Number 7, launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign. Personally, I think that's complete BS right from there. That sounds like a great way to pay back Hollywood. Because who's going to run this campaign? It's going to have to be researched and put together, and then what is the campaign going to be? It's obviously going to be audio, visual, or something of that nature. So somebody's got to pay for that. Don't think we need it right now. Number 8, review safety standards for gun locks and gun safes. This would be under the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Safety standards. All right, well, if you have safety standards that are imposed for the manufacturers of gun locks, who, for the most part now, gun locks, you find them in with firearms when you buy them. They kind of look like a bicycle lock if you don't know. And gun safes, well, you know what a gun safe is. If you have to review safety standards, that, in a way, will remove the liability for people in their homes who have these products to the manufacturers. I guess what I'm trying to say is, why do you have to have safety standards for gun locks and gun safes? I don't even understand that. So if you buy a gun safe and it doesn't meet a safety standard, which I'm not quite sure what that even means, I think the lawyers are going to love this. Absolutely. I see litigation going out just crazy with setting and then having some kind of ability to enforce these safety standards. Okay, that's laying the groundwork for some serious litigation there. And of course, now the person who buys the tool and the person who stores the tool is going to have to buy something that's made to some safety standard. You know, imagine safety standards for a shovel, and then safety standard for your garden shed. Think about that. Okay, now we're to number 9. Issue a presidential memorandum to require federal law enforcement to trace guns recovered in criminal investigations. Well, I would like to think that they already do, as part of the ongoing investigation of the crime. The only reason I can see why you'd have number 9 here is to track the firearm itself. Not the crime, not the people, not the criminal, but the tool. In other words, it's focusing more and more on the tool. In other words, this is the bad thing, not the hand that wields it, which personally I think is a huge step in the wrong direction. Number 10. Release a Department of Justice report analyzing information on lost and stolen guns and make it widely available to law enforcement. All right. If you report a tool lost or stolen, usually for anything else, or even just for insurance reasons, or as part of the police report, you're going to have to identify, or in some way, shape, or form on the paperwork, the stolen item. That means that your information, personal information, has to be gathered in order to trace the thing back to you. Which, if it's, I don't know, if somebody stole your watch, and your watch was recovered later, sure, you'd like to have your watch back. So, it should be widely available to law enforcement. It should already be widely available to law enforcement. The part that bothers me is the analyzing information. Why? What's there to analyze? Something was stolen, it's reported, it should be given back. It sounds to me a little bit more like a demographic analyzation. It seems like this is more interested in finding out who owns what, and using the fact that these things occasionally get lost and stolen as an excuse to find out who owns what. Again, my opinion. Number 11, nominate an ATF director. Well, all I can say is perhaps the president should nominate one that can get through Congress. That's all there is on that. Number 12, provide law enforcement, first responders, and school officials with proper training for active shooter situations. This is handled on the local level, the municipal level. When it says provide proper training, what does provide mean? Does that mean somebody's going to sit down in an office in Washington, D.C. and come out with some guidelines and some ideas that they're going to ship out to every municipality in the United States of America, and that's going to be the end of it? Or could this be another incentive, another thing that those municipalities would apply for to get funding for, thus tightening the financial dependency between Washington and the several states? That's my question. Number 13, maximize enforcement efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crimes. Well, if the Fed isn't already doing that, we need to hire some new employees. To me, this is almost a throwaway, because if you need to have an executive order to maximize enforcement efforts in any area at all, if you need to be told to maximize your efforts based on the resources available, I can't say any more than maybe we need to hire some new people if they need that order. 14. Issue a presidential memorandum directing the Centers for Disease Control to research the causes and prevention of gun violence. Guys, if y'all play video games, that's the one you ought to be watching. Because on the face of it, I don't know why the Centers for Disease Control would be worried about gun violence, because as far as I know, gun violence is rarely, if ever, caused by a disease, an organic infiltration of some sort to a human body. Not quite sure about this one. Again, it's real vague, doesn't make any difference. But when you start researching causes and prevention from an organic standpoint, that's a little confusing. But we'll just, again, these videos are just for you to think about. the potential good, bad, or indifference of these executive orders. Number 15, direct the Attorney General to issue a report on the availability and most effective use of new gun safety technologies and challenge the private sector to develop innovative technologies. Well, you know, as anybody who has used firearms as a tool and understands that's what they are, the best safety is right there. Always has been. There's never been in the history of mankind a firearm like a watch or a shovel or whatnot that just jumps up and does harm in and of itself. It's an inanimate object. It has to be directed by a human being with a brain. Well, technically it does have one. Whether it's being properly used is always up for debate. So this, of course, sounds more like maybe we want to see some more mandates on safeties, what they call safeties, which I call things that render the tool more ineffective. But that's a matter of opinion. Okay, that was 15. So 16, clarify that the Affordable Care Act does not prohibit doctors asking their patients about guns in their homes. Wow. Okay, I'm going to pick this one up with the next, a little bit more on the next video, so it'll kind of pick up from there. But this one sets the tone for several of the next directives, or orders, if you want to call them that. If the fact that this order doesn't scare you almost as much as anything else, this is basically telling doctors that the simple fact that a citizen has a firearm in the home will be, I mean, this is very clear. Clarify. The first word is clarify that the government-run healthcare, okay? I'm not saying it's a good, I'm not passing judgment on whether government-run healthcare is good or bad, but the fact is, it says, clarify that the Affordable Health Care Act does not prohibit doctors. It's another way of saying, clarify that the Affordable Health Care Act encourages. If you specifically tell somebody that they're not prohibited from doing something, that means that they are in fact encouraged to do so. Not discouraged, not prohibited. It means encouraged, or it's not, or you can do it. Now you got to ask yourself, why would it matter to your healthcare provider if you have a firearm in the house or not? And again, hey, you shotgun hunter people, collector people, you know, you guys that think that this doesn't affect you because you've been told that, you're fooling yourself, because that means when little Johnny or little Susie goes in, that a physician who is inclined to, or perhaps pressured to, because he's not prohibited from, it's being clarified they're not prohibited from, can tell their doctor, psychiatrist, perhaps school resource officer, yes, mommy or daddy has their 45. Could be in the gun safe, don't matter. You know, hanging on the wall, hanging in the gun rack, in the gun safe, in the gun cabinet. That information, that private information of things inside your home, will now be passed on, because it's clarified, it's being clarified that you, that it's not prohibited. Anyway, we'll move on to video number 3. See y'all in a bit.